very much. A lot has happened in the course of the week, and we're here to analyze these issues, critically analyze these issues. We will be talking about the demolishing of structures belonging to some people at the place known by the name Mensa Guinea by the Accra mayor. We'll also look at assault on media, and the Media Foundation for West Africa has done a list of over a dozen assaults so far, or breaches or violations of media rights, so to speak. Osaya Miao, one of the presidential hopefuls, so to speak, flag bearer hopefuls of the NPP, has dropped out of the race. What does that mean for Nana Akufo-Addo? And as we speak, well, if you thought that Alan Shermanting ever contemplated quitting, you got it wrong. He's launching his campaign today. We'll get into all that mix, and the NPP, like I said last week and today too, still in self-destruct mode, making mountains out of molehills, and people criticizing and condemning them, justifiably so, that they may not be worthy of our votes because they are not showing that they are ready to be in government. We'll go to the World Cup Commission of Inquiry and find out some of the very bizarre revelations that are coming out regarding food, regarding how much it costs to put up a website for the Brazil 2014, and a host of other issues that came up. Kwesi Appiah, the coach of the Black Stars, sacked. Well, there are some who are asking the question, is he the one who deserves the sack, or is Kwesi Nyantakyi rather who deserves the sack? And is someone causing financial loss to us by this particular sack? We'll find out a lot more about all of that. But my guests are seated. Let's get to know who is in the studio. And tell you the truth, oftentimes I get to know who is coming here on the very morning. And seeing you and Kobi Echampong reminds me of long ago. Sometime, I think it was 2008, when I was hosting the show on radio. Good morning to you both, and welcome to the show. I know you are very good friends. Kobi Echampong is the Executive Director, JIDA, and a former Deputy Interior Minister. Good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Great. Nana Akufo-Addo, he is former MP and Communications Director of the NPP. He's also served as a Minister of Information, Youth, Manpower and Employment, Tourism under President Kufuor. Nana, good morning and welcome.
Morning, Samson.
Good to have you. Kweku Bako Jr. Abdul Malik is a regular panelist. He's the Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Good morning, Abdul Malik.
Yeah, good morning,
and we will be joined shortly, I hope, by James Agalga. He is Deputy Interior Minister and MP for Bulsa North. We'll get straight into the issues, and we'll start first with the lessons on how to get rid of slums, squatters, and cholera. Let's just take a little view of what came out of Mensa Guinea when the mayor went there to ensure a demolition that has received the overwhelming endorsement of, we are told, chiefs within that area. Radio, sorry, but unfortunately, you don't have the benefit of the of the pictures. We are seeing very little children who are sort of appear to be joining their parents to go through the things that are left of their structures. These are mainly wooden structures, and you see some men picking the wood that's been brought down, and the roofing sheets. Yes, we are seeing pictures of wooden structures, the homes that have been brought down, and so they're trying to see what they can get out of what is left, and to see how they relocate to wherever. We are seeing some of them also. It's night now, and they are lying down, trying to still catch a sleep under the situation. I guess this is part of what we are told by the mayor was supposed to be planned, that these people were asked to sleep, to lie down so that the journalists will cover them and bring these footages to make government look bad. So that's just what you're seeing, and you're just seeing the people obviously in a state of devastation. And so that's about it. And this happened in the course of this week. Mensa, Guinea, around the Arc Center, just behind there, that's where you find them. And that community does not exist as we speak. James Agalga joins us. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Samson.
Great. Now, I think I'd like to start with you, Abdul Malik. What are your views of how the mayor went about this particular demolition exercise? We are told that the people were giving 3 days notice, and then the mayor went in with the bulldozers and began to pull down their structures. There are people who are complaining that this is just not right. But there are those who are saying, why? Are you seeking to encourage that we should have this slum, since, squatters continue to spring up in such areas, especially when the place has been identified as one of the major areas contributing to the cholera outbreak that has claimed over 100 lives in Accra?
Yes, you know what? How many times haven't we sat on this table to discuss or interrogate demolitions undertaken by the AMA or other municipal, metropolitan and district assemblies or authorities? How many times haven't we done that? And each time we did that, we all realized that bottom line is also due to the way we plan our towns and cities. And we always notice that. We also realize that those systems themselves, those authorities themselves, were part of the problem by their perennial inability to enforce their bylaws, and sometimes with their collaboration in making those people settle in those areas. So really, today, my emphasis is not on that. We have dealt with that issue over and over again. Now we have been told that it's linked to the cholera and all those things, so sanitation, all that's still a matter that had been here for years, and those authorities had been in office and themselves had not taken actions to do what ought to be done. My emphasis is on how the mayor post the event. Or you think I'm jumping the gun?
We'll deal with that. It's supposed to be the second.
You know why? I have nothing more to say relative to the first part, because we've said it over and over again. The authorities are themselves part of the problem. Where were they when the settlement was growing up? And it's been there for years. Only God knows. I'm sure some of those who went destroying those structures had not been born by then.
That is a legitimate question, as is the question we need to get rid of them.
But if you would, then why don't you have alternative structures somewhere, locations? Why you went there, your station, there were kids, children. After the structures, those unauthorized structures had been destroyed. Now they had no structures, so the kids were lying there on the bare floor, on the ground, still victims of the harshness of the weather, which could kill them as well. So what was the solution? A scientific one? A pragmatic one? A realistic one? Come on, I expect something better and more responsible from authorities of state. You've seen the problem, you've identified the problem.
We are the same who will complain when they allow the slums to grow.
But that's the point I'm making. Where were they? Now, unfortunately, let's be clear and let's be precise. It cannot be put on the head of only exclusively, on this present mayor or the AMA as constituted, because it's been a long-standing problem. Okay? And then, finally, when we want to resolve the matter, we make victims, internally displaced persons or refugees of our own people. And then we say they are to be blamed exclusively. I am saying that a higher level of responsibility must be borne by those who are in state authority, those who have entrusted with authority, whether at the district, municipal, metropolitan level, and the national level. So we don't wait. You don't sit there and let the slums grow and become a huge settlement where people are committed, even emotionally, and things committed to. We have children. You don't allow that to happen. Until then, you go in one day in the Basuga way, you know, yeah, my Rambo. You raise the place down. You finish. You're gone. Children are lying down there. What are we doing to the children too? So please, it is just not a scientific, pragmatic, realistic solution. Here we are already, we've created a problem. So why don't you look for alternative locations? Plan those locations well. There's money out there, some of which we are wasting and dissipating and misapplying. Forge that alternative location, then find a way of relocating these human beings.
Mr. Chapon, you take it on from there, and there are some members of the authority and some other members of the public who think that it is not right for people to be heard, to continue to say that for as long as the people have been allowed to be in the place, it should be the responsibility of the authorities to find them alternative locations before they do what is right.
Yes, Samson, good morning to your viewers and listeners. It's a pleasure to be back. I haven't been here in a very long time.
That's right.
The issue of slum development evokes a lot of passion, emotion, and everything that you can think of. It depends on where you sit and what you are looking at. I mean, if you go around the whole world, there are slums that spring out of two issues that I have clearly identified as. One, the culture of impunity. Why do I say culture of impunity? Culture of impunity because, one, the slum dwellers, you want to ask yourself, do they own that land where they go and occupy? Invariably, the answer will be no, they don't. They just go there by virtue of usually what we know as urban, rural, or rural-urban migration. They settle into those places. Nobody bothers them, so it is assumed that they have title to the place and stay there. No, that's one of the cultures of impunity. And if you go around the city of Accra today, you see a lot of that happening. I'll give you examples. Go to a place like Manet Cottage on the Sprinters Road. Mm-hmm. You know how these slums start? People there have bought their titles to the land. They have their houses there. It's well demarcated layout. They paid good money for that. Somebody will come and establish a barber shop, a wooden barber shop, just along the street. As a resident, I'll think, oh, it's a convenience for me initially, because then I don't have to drive all the way out and go to a barber shop. So you allow that to sit. It is followed by a beautician shop. You allow that to sit. Then somebody realizes, oh, I can provide services in terms of grocery, plantain, cassava, tomatoes, so that people don't have to go into the city. Or in case of emergency, you can pick these things. Then that allows to sit. What happens is these people sleep in those shops.
Right.
Now, as you continue to sleep in those, what are you doing? You are devaluing the properties that are located there. Because one, you don't have running water, you don't have toilets, you don't have all those things. But we allow that to happen because of the convenience attitude that we have. Invariably, your property devalues, more problems are created. And if you don't check these things, it happens. I mean, Mensah has been there for 30 years. Yes, we all understand. But the question is, are the residents of that area entitled to stay there? The answer is no.
And were we collecting monies from them?
Well, I don't know about that. I cannot say anything about that. I can't say anything
allocating
about that.
Space to them. Were they paying monies to any authority of the state? Like the culture
they will tell you yes.
Center for National Culture and all those things. So what are we talking about?
Good. But that is illegal. You understand?
The state itself promoting impunity.
Good. They find themselves in that situation because they don't know any better. Because if you are occupying an illegal slot and somebody comes to tell you that, oh, you can stay here for this amount of money, anybody would ask, why are you charging me this? but they don't, and they think it's convenient for them to do that. So we have allowed these things to develop. The other point that I want to raise is that there's a lack of enforcement of city planning modules, period. See, everywhere you go, the city is divided into residential areas, industrial areas, commercial centers. If you don't enforce and people begin to mix and match what they can do, an industrial area used for residential purposes, because the amenities specifically located for industrial areas have a certain target, you realize that these things will fester and grow. But because you are not enforcing the primary law in terms of development models, you allow these things to happen.
Thank you.
Now, the issue is, how do you deal with these things? You understand? You apply the law, you begin to enforce the law. At what point do you have to do these things? And then the argument will also come in the human face of what you want to do.
Don't just raise that issue. Tell us what you think ought to be done.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, those people are illegal squatters. They need to be moved from there. Pure and simple.
How should they be moved? That's the
See,
question.
that argument, you ask the question whether they should be compensated. I don't see any point of compensation in this one.
Relocation.
It's not the city's business to relocate people who have occupied the place illegally.
30 years gone, you wait.
Fine, but still, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step.
Let me bring in James here. Now, James, wearing your legal cap, Mr. Champon just said that it is not the business of the state or the city authority to seek to relocate them, or they don't owe them anything. It doesn't matter. First of all, they are squatters. They came to a place that they do not have title to. What does your law tell you? Do they have any right, after having lived there for upwards of 30 years, without any hindrances?
Well, Samson,
collecting monies
good morning to your cherished viewers. Well, wearing my legal cap, quite clearly, if you allow squatters to settle on a parcel of land, I mean, in law, if you look at the statutes of limitations, you notice that after 12 years, even if the person were a squatter, it doesn't matter how the person entered the land. He's deemed to be in adverse possession. But Samson, this issue is a very difficult one to deal with.
You help us. You're doing something which is purely legal.
Yes.
And I want you to help us a little bit about that. When you say the law says that if someone who does not have a right to a particular piece of land,
yes,
or does not have title to it,
yes,
is allowed to stay there for upwards of 12 years by law,
yes,
they are supposed to be deemed as people who have adverse possession.
That's right.
How do you deal with such a person? Do they have any rights after that?
Of course, once you are, I mean, in adverse possessions, you acquire some rights. Even beyond that, you notice that under several international instruments, the Universal Declaration of Rights, the United Nations Conventions on Social People's Rights, all these instruments contain very elaborate provisions which protects people who fall within the category of squatters and those who dwell in slums. And so there is this question of whether, I mean, such a category of persons can be evicted without certain corresponding obligations on the part of the evicting authorities.
Okay.
I mean, the position of the law is settled on those matters. And as a lawyer, I'm not going to pretend that such squatters, or if you like, slum dwellers, do not have certain rights. Kweku and even my brother Kobe talked about the failure on the part of city authorities to take measures right from the outset when these slums start springing up. And that is part of the problem. But once the slums spring up, I would concede that, yes, there are certain rights which would naturally accrue, and that if they have to be evicted, certain broad lines, I mean, guidelines have to be followed. I mean, we've had the UN rapporteur on forced evictions come out with a number of guidelines which ought to guide us.
Sure.
But as a people, we have to admit that, and these things transcends the NDC administration, successive governments in this country have forcibly evicted squatters.
I remember as far back as 2006 and before that, doing stories in Kumasi about some of these evictions.
Yes.
And Nana Oyeleta at the time,
Yes.
you know, speaking very forcefully
Yes.
about the wrongfulness of the processes of the eviction.
Yes. So, and these broad guidelines ought to inform our own decisions as a people. I must admit that, yes, we have not done too well in that regard. But as we speak, directives have been issued. The president has clearly given directives that, led by the Ministry for Local Government, we should henceforth come out with guidelines on evictions. Evictions are not totally abhorred in law. There are certain exceptional circumstances which would warrant the forceful eviction of squatters. You see, and those exceptional circumstances have not been well defined. Now, the AMA, on this particular occasion, and I'm making reference to the Mensah-Guinea demolitions, stated categorically that the continuous existence of the Mensah-Guinea slum was contributing to the spread of the cholera epidemic in the city of Accra. Does that amount to an exceptional circumstance to warrant the forceful eviction of the squatters at Mensah-Guinea?
What do you say?
If it is,
What do you say?
I think so.
You have the evidence?
Sorry?
You have the evidence?
Well, the city authorities are in charge of sanitation and know clearly, as a matter of fact, where a cholera epidemic.
You have no reason to doubt them.
I have no reason to doubt them. For instance, some individuals went to court to restrain the AMA from allowing those who dispose of fecal matter in the Lavender Hill to refrain from doing so. And so if the AMA were to come out today to say, look, henceforth, don't deposit fecal matter on the whatever Lavender Hill, and that is contributing to the spread of the cholera epidemic, I won't have any cause to doubt them. But I mean, having said that...
But how does that reference work? Those who went to court, the EPA, have been successful, and the court has ordered that the AMA should not continue in that direction.
Yes, so now they're looking for alternative, I mean...
Yes, they're actually in the process. They have started it.
Yes, disposal site for the relocation of those who deposit fecal matter there. Because once there's no alternative, you'd also admit that, yes, our manholes, when they are filled to capacity, that could even cause very serious health hazards for all of us.
The AMA pleaded for time. The court gave it some time and asked it to submit a program of how gradually it intends to move, you know, to a new location.
That's right. So, something, looking at it from the international, perspective, international legal instruments, of course, have certain broad guidelines. And I think that we as a people must draw inspiration from those guidelines. And I'm happy that His Excellency the President, of course, was not too happy with the hardship which was unleashed on the, of course, vulnerable people who for so many years have squatted on the Mensah-Guinea lands, to come out with those broad guidelines to guide us in the future if, as and when, we have to demolish such slums within the city. Now, that brings me back to the question of enforcement on the part of the city authorities. I mean, if you look at the Local Government Act, specifically Section 49, it's very clear that you cannot put up structures within the districts, municipalities, or metropolitan areas without permits from the district assemblies. It's very clear. But you want to ask yourself, why is it that the city authorities are not able to enforce this provision within the Local Government Act, which empowers them to demolish when structures start springing up? The problem is their inability to carry out these demolition exercises when structures start springing up without permits issued by them for such constructions to go on. And so when construction has completed, and people find a place of abode in those illegal structures, they acquire certain rights. You cannot just get up and start demolition, right? Having slept over your own rights.
Relative to this particular Mensa Guinea issue, you are saying that the spread of cholera, which was linked to that place, provided exceptional circumstances for which it was right. The action that has been taken is justified.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, Nana, James again talks about the president asking the authorities, local authorities, to publish guidelines as to how they will go about some of these, eviction exercises or demolition exercises to get people out of these slums and so on and so forth. I'm sure that must have come, and we are aware of it, after the Ajay Kojo demolishing by the TMA, which left hundreds homeless, people who had clear title, even though you may call them inferior title as the investigation shows. And government subsequently had to provide, shelter for them. Are you aware of some of these plans?
Well, thank you, Samson. Let me wish my brothers here and your viewers a good day. I've listened to my colleagues, and one thing stands out clearly in all of this, and that thing is that there's leadership failure. It's a failure of leadership.
Maybe you should answer my question specific first. Do you know of any plans by the city authorities as to how to go about demolitions as directed by the president?
No, you said that the president has now called for guidelines. So obviously those guidelines do not exist. That is, I was building up to it because it is a symptom of leadership failure. The real cause is leadership failure. Slums have been with us for a long time. This current one, Mensa Guinea, is at least 20 years old. The last one was Abuja. Do you know Abuja? It was also demolished about 2 weeks ago. You know Abuja? You know where it is? Behind the CMB flats, the CMB head office, Tantamanto. It's been there. It's called Abuja. In fact, the real name for it is Condemn. But it has been there for over 10 years. It was demolished, I think, 2 weeks ago. And today is Mensa Guinea. We're also talking about the Tema one. What was it? Ajay Kojo and so on. So today we are saying, oh, there should be, let's have some guideline. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And that has been the way leadership seems to have operated over the years. And so leadership is the cause.
Leadership at what level?
Leadership at the highest level is the cause. Because that's where the buck stops.
In February, early in February, you had the Ajay Kojo issue.
Yeah.
And the president asked these authorities to publish guidelines by which they'll go by these processes.
At the Ajay Kojo time.
Yes, that's the time when the president made the order.
And obviously, that order has not been complied with. But I'm saying that slums have been.
It may not be correct. He says that this is an exceptional situation.
No, it's a slum that has been demolished without guidelines. And there's a human rights situation. There are victims and all of that. And I'm saying that if there were clear guidelines, we will not wait for cholera to have this knee-jerk reaction and then we're into all this brouhaha. Now, I'm saying that the laws in this country are adequate. Kobe Achampo was alluding to it. The laws are there. The problem is the enforcement of the laws.
Right.
If we could, despite our economic situation, if we can achieve 80% enforcement of the laws on the statute books, we will be a far better country. Because enforcing the laws is a leadership matter. It's an executive matter. It's not just this government. Of course, this government has been in place for over how many years? 6 years or so. So you would immediately, they are in charge. But it's over the period. Over the period, we haven't enforced the laws. This morning, when I saw your topics, I saw this calendar, and I was looking at it. It's a calendar by a local government ministry. And here it is, the HE John Dramani Mahama, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, launching the decentralization policy, revised environmental sanitation policy, and 2010 National Sanitation Week. You know, all the laws are there. All the launchings have been done. All the reports are there. What is left is enforcement. Yes. And there are people who are being paid to exercise that executive function. They do not do it. Then there's crisis. And then we go and act, have
when
a
they're
knee-jerk
enforcing
reaction.
these laws and there are casualties, we say, wait.
No, we see, Samson, when you enforce the laws at the time you have to enforce them, there will be no crisis. It is small, incremental, every day, every hour enforcement. That's what we're talking about. One person extends their wall to the gutter. There's a planning officer for that area. That planning officer should make sure that that wall is removed. Because if that planning officer does not do his or her duty, the next house would extend, because they're not fools. They'll say, this man has extended his wall to the gutter and he's attached a beer bar. He's making money. Why should I obey the law? They will extend their wall to the gutter and rent it to a hairdresser.
Impunity.
You see? And then the third person, then the fourth person. Then now when you're going to enforce the law, when the crimes have already been committed, there's a crisis. And that is the situation that we have today.
And the example you're giving an example of people who are deliberately violating the law. So when they are caught, why should anybody have mercy on them? Have pity on them?
Samson, the onus is not on the lawbreaker. All of us will break the laws if we get a chance. Who would like to go and take the long route when there's a shortcut? What keeps us in line? What distinguishes the Ghanaian from the, let's say, the person living in London?
Next door, Ivory Coast.
It's not because
we litter. We have laws against littering, but we still litter.
The difference is not because we are living in Ghana and they live. It's because there, the laws are enforced. The same Ghanaian who would litter, who would put a kiosk in an unauthorized place and do all sorts of stuff, when he gets to London, he wouldn't even dream of going to cite a kiosk on the sidewalk because he knows that the laws will work. So that is the problem. We wait until there's a crisis and then we say, we have to go and enforce the law. By that time, it's a different ballgame, like my friend Agaga is saying. There are human rights issues there and on settlements and all of that. Ajay Kojo and the Mensa Guinea, they didn't come overnight. One person will go, then another person. Then over years, it develops. There's no toilet.
So when you acknowledge this, some will ask the question, so what was the business of the minority in parliament, holding a press conference, taking the president on and taking the mayor on for watching for some of these places to develop in the first place, because it didn't develop in the last 6 years?
I don't know if the minority said that the president is solely to blame, because the settlements have been there before the president came. Is that what they said? I haven't heard. What I heard was that they were saying that the cholera outbreak the major cause of that is because monies have not been released for district assemblies, local assemblies, to pay contractors and all of that. That is what I heard. I haven't heard them say that President Mahama is to be blamed for settlements that have arisen. But he is part of the blame. All the people who have preceded him, Jerry Rawlings, Kufuor, they are all part of it because they have held ultimate executive authority. I mean, you don't need to go far. I mean, look at today, as we're talking about Mensa Guinea. There are churches that have been established in residential areas, violating the laws on nuisance, public order. Every law in the book has been violated. We are looking on. There are beer bars that have been established in places where they're disturbing everybody in the neighborhood. We are looking on. Every day, the laws are being violated.
Okay.
We are looking on.
End on this note, how do you expect what do you expect to be done to the people of Mensa Guinea?
Well, like I said, it's been there for at least 2 decades, 20 years. So obviously they've acquired, even if they haven't acquired rights, it's a settlement. There must be about at least 2,000, 3,000 Ghanaians, children living there. You just don't uproot them.
That's been done. What should happen?
now
calling the
now
NABU.
that it's been done.
Calling NABU.
Yeah, but even,
give them thanks for temporary.
They
did some quick thing.
Yes.
The doctors and medical attention, all that. The kids.
Yes. I mean, something has to be done. What I would wish to be done, what Kweku is also suggesting is also legitimate. What I would wish to be done immediately, the proper authority should go there, find out the exact numbers involved. They have to be relocated, not at government expense. I don't believe that. But they have to be supported to relocate. Because in Ghana, fortunately, because of the way our system works, everybody has a home. Everybody has a home.
I need to understand you clearly. You say
Some
they
of
don't
them
have to
came
be
from
resettled.
far.
He says they don't have to be
As you said,
resettled at the
urban-
expense of government.
Yeah.
And yet you say they ought to be supported. What support are you talking about?
I'm saying, but if you let me finish, you'll see. I'm saying that fortunately in Ghana, everybody has a home. All those people in Mensagane, I'm sure they have villages, they have towns that they come from. Support them to relocate so that they can go back to their villages, if even some transportation, decent transportation, something small, so when they go,
Okay.
you know, all the trauma of
All right,
resettling.
thank you.
That is what should be done.
Thank you very much, Nana Kumia, and thank you to all of you for your, views on this particular matter. Obviously, some solution ought to be found because we understand that presently the people, most of them are still there. They haven't left. They are just lurking around, hanging around, and their children are at the mercy of the, dangers of the sea. Kekeli Edem, Edinam, sends from Dansman Samson, if the mayor means business, he should demolish all the other slums in the capital, including Sodom and Gomorrah. The chiefs should back him to be able to do that. Well, thank you very much for that message.